This video is aimed at giving an overview of how to use the AI assistant tool of PLSQL Developer. One must be using PLSQL Developer 16. Earlier versions will not have this feature available, so they will be of no use. Beyond that, obviously an Oracle database must be available, and a suitable AI tool must also be selected. For the purposes of this video, I will be using Oracle XC with the standard HR schema provided by Oracle with arbitrary data, and my AI tool will be Google Gemini. So let's move on to how to set this up. Okay, once the Oracle database has been installed um, and set up, we may now log into the HR schema. The HR schema itself, for anyone unaware, is a training schema provided by Oracle simply for the purposes of learning. And none of the data contained therein is relatable to real people. It's just training data. So we're safe, is what I'm saying. Anyway, to configure the AI, we go to the configuration ribbon and select the AI option. This will open the AI configuration window where the AI tool that we wish to use may be configured. Now, out of the box, these options were already here. So one may use whichever AI tool they desire. As I mentioned, I will be using Google Gemini. Should one have the desire to do so, they could use ChatGPT, Grok, DeepSeek, or whatever. Um, I did, however, notice that the space URLs provided for ChatGPT and Google Gemini out of the box were not correct. So I had to change that. Anyway, going with Gemini, I have provided the base URL and I've already registered this tool. However, to do this, the user must press the register button, which will take them to where they may register and generate an API key. Once the key has been generated, it is pasted in here, and that will pair the AI with the database, giving the AI access to what it needs to see. Of course, the model may be selected from the options here. I'm just going to go with this option here. Clicking this tick here will enable the AI tool for use. If we go over to the AI functions tab, we will see the functions that will be available on the AI menu itself. Interestingly, there is quite a bit of configuration possible here because the prompt that is going to the AI can be configured. So for those quite familiar with how to tailor, or perhaps you could say tune the prompts for better input, this may be done here. For the purposes of this demonstration, I will not be changing these prompts, but I will go through what these options do. And lastly, we have the usage menu, which, well, I have been using this for a few days now, will show earlier attempts to use ChatGPT and what I have been or how I have been using Google Gemini. Regardless, once all is in order here, the AI is ready to use and will be available through the AI Assistant menu, which you will see many of these options are grayed out, but they will become available as we use them. Okay, so we now have an AI configured and ready to use. So let's do just that. So again, I'm going to be using the HR schema here, which is schema that will represent, I suppose, a false imaginary, we'll say, HR department for a company. So we have several tables here, whereon there is some data. Obviously, to use this data, we would need to use SQL, as I've done here. But we can use the AI to speed things up and hopefully make things a little bit easier for us. So let's do that. So something very simple to begin with. Okay. Interestingly, I have seen it provide a slightly different answer for the same prompt in which it would actually specify each column out, but in this case it didn't do it. Good example, I suppose, that it's a non-deterministic answer, non-deterministic machine. Let's try something a bit more complicated. Uh, yeah, it also gave me a year's worked column, which I didn't ask for. ask for, but it did do it, which is good. Now let's give it something that will require it to join these tables. Show me employees. I'll just point out here that the HR schema is quite, or the tables on the HR schema rather, are quite conducive to this type of model because the names of the tables and the columns of the tables they're quite meaningful. They're English words. So we've got first name, last name, employee, it's whatever. If using a schema where on the tables are a little bit more abstract, it will be necessary to help the AI with some hints just to show it what tables we're referring to. In this case, it's not necessary, but if the employee table were, for example, called employee, I would have to specify the names of the table here just to help. I'll just do the full name of the table. Again, not necessary, but that's how it's done. Let's see what it comes up with here. And we run it. Okay. Yep, that's pretty good. Now, I'm going to give it something that is, I won't say impossible, but a little bit unclear. This is the regions table. I am going to ask it to find me the manager active in each region, which is somewhat possible by going to locations and finding um, departments and countries in there. You can somewhat do it, but it's not really possible. But anyway, let's see what it comes up with. Show me the manager of for each region. Right. Interesting. Okay, let's run this and see what it does. What has it done? Quite clever. Okay, so in this case, it's joined regions to countries to locations to departments to employees and got the managers that way. So that's very clever. I have seen it do this before and actually fail and it will come back with an explanation of why it can't do that. I have even seen it come back with a query that was a straight select from region and then with another column that it generated to say that the manager name is not available. However, I don't think it's actually done this entirely correctly. So if we look at, we have Europe, Americas, Oceania. It has not given us everything. That may just be due to the limitation of the data that's available. But yeah, okay, so it's pretty good. So I think this example shows that whilst this tool is very useful, it should not be taken as a substitute and never can be a substitute for a thorough knowledge of the schema itself on the part of the developer. So it is quite literally an assistant. Um, However, I think as a time saver, it's certainly something very useful. But that is SQL. So let's go over and take a look at what can be done with PLSQL. Okay, cool. So as with SQL, this can be used to generate PLSQL. So let's do just that. So I'm going to ask it to generate us a procedure that will add a record into the employee table. And just to make things interesting, let's see what it comes up with here. This may take a... Okay, what has it come up with? So create a procedure, insert employee, fair enough. Okay, simple enough. I'll just point out that again, I have done this before, and in the past, it has given me, it has given me procedures that didn't actually compile. Not very often, but it did do it. And it had given me procedures that included explicit commits. In this case, it can do that, but let's see what it's come up with here. So here's the test script. Let's run it. Okay. Okay, we got a primary key validation. I think the employee ID is probably check what's on employees. For it to have a unique email, obviously, and a unique, that's the issue. So these are two I created earlier. It's just all it is. So it got a bit confused. I'm not sure why, but it seemed to think that 207 was available. There is actually a sequence that could have been used, but it didn't use it. I could have given it a better prompt. We'll go to 10 and we'll go just give it a different name. Again, it's included an explicit commit. Okay. Did it. Let's just check employees again, see if it's done in. Again, it included an explicit commit, so the effort should be there. And it is. Okay. So pretty good. Again, this won't actually work because it's made the assumption the 207 was free. Yeah, so not perfect, but pretty good. I have seen it come back with some pretty questionable results here before, including test scripts that simply did not work. Space, it's not too bad. In another example, it actually went through creating a job and creating a department, and it tied itself up in knots and just didn't work. Although in this case, it's pretty good. So, whilst it wasn't perfect, I think as a time saver, to actually write this by hand would have taken a lot of time. So, I give it about an 8 out of 10. And of course, this is a functional bit of PLSQL that can be used, but you can also use it to generate somewhat arbitrary things. Well, let's see. Give me a function to test whether the number is prime or not. If it's prime, what's it doing? Okay, let's try it. I should have asked for a script. We could test ourselves. Systems C function is prime. U. Okay. Well, actually, this is a good opportunity. Let's use the AI to generate a test script for us. Give me a script to test the is prime. This time we'll say please. Actually, it looks like it's recreated the function here, but okay, we'll ignore that. Okay, it seems awfully complicated, but let's see what it does. Okay, it doesn't work. Okay, so that's a pretty good example of how what last name is done here. I think it's created something far too complicated. Let's try again. Oh, if it does for better. Let's try it this time. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so 2 is prime, 4 is not prime, 17 is a prime number, 21 is not, 1 is not, 0 is not, 101 is not, 121 is not prime. I'll take its word for it. Anyway, so that's a bit better. So, and that was actually a pretty good example of how it got confused and created something far more complicated than was needed. Now, Of course, this is not really a limitation of AI assistant, but rather the AI that's being used. Maybe ChatGPT or Copilot would give a better example. I will, of course, say that this is the free version of Gemini that I am using, so that needs to be borne in mind. But anyway, that is how to create some code with the AI. So we'll move on and have a look how we can modify code and do some other stuff later on. Thank you. Okay, so we've now seen how we can use the AI assistant to generate code. So let's look at some of the other functions that are, I suppose, more utility focused. So I'm just going to quickly go through a few of them here. So I have here a query, also generated by the AI, that just simply shows all employees who were hired after the 1st of December 2018. It's arbitrary, but say we want to modify this query to just add the departments wherein each of these people work. Now we could, of course, just join directly to it ourselves, but using the AI assistant, we can do this quite easily by selecting the modify option and inputting a prompt to do just this. Maybe a little more verbose than it needs to be, but let's see what it does. And it looks to have been successful. So it's just put an inner join into departments. So let's run it and see what we get. Oh, okay, didn't do great there. Let's take this out. We don't necessarily need that. But I think it has worked, yeah. So it made a mistake with the manager ID column, but we can just leave that out. So it doesn't always get it right, but there you go. That's how we modify. Okay, let's take a look at the finish function, the finish option. I found this quite cool. What it does is it will, if given a function, a procedure, a query that is at least meaningfully named in such a way to suggest what the end result is intended to be, it should be able to complete it. So in this case, I'm passing in a date and I want to return true or false if it is a weekday. So let's see what it does. So to make it work, we highlight the code we want to finish. We go to AI Assistant and we hit finish. Yeah, okay, let's just run it. And it seems to have compiled. Yep. I'm not going to test it. I'm just going to presume it works because I think it demonstrates what it does. But anyway, as we can see, that's a pretty handy bit of code generated far quicker than it would take to write it. So next, let's take a look at the fix function. So in this case, obviously, I've misnamed a table. So if I try to run this, it's not going to work. Obviously, this is a very simple query, but nonetheless, we'll let the AI fix it for us. Yeah, and of course, it just corrects it. It even gives a comment as to what the issue actually was. So again, a very simple example here, but could be a time saver. Okay, and lastly, I'm just going to display how to use the add comment function. So I have here a fairly complicated query. Well, I know what it does because I generated it. I didn't write it. But rather than going through it and trying to figure out what it actually does, we can highlight it, go to the AI Assistant menu, and select Add Comments, which will explain what it is doing. And as we can see in plenty of detail, it is now telling us what the query does. This one I think will be quite, probably there are too many comments here, but I suppose it opens up the debate as to whether one can have too many comments or not. But I think the utility here is quite self-evident. What it actually does is it will show the department managers, and then the highest paid employee in each department, which usually is the manager. But in fact, yes, I think it is always the manager. I suppose that makes sense. Anyway, that is the add comments So just to round off the video with my own thoughts on this, as I think should have been obvious from the video so far, if you've made it this far, I think this is a pretty useful utility that we could use. I think it's certainly, whilst it's not going to be a substitute to knowing how to use the database and knowing um, what tables do what or such and such, and obviously in application this is a very arbitrary schema. In a real database, it would be a little bit more, quite a bit more complicated actually. I think certainly there is utility to be had from this. So yeah, I would certainly recommend it based on what I've seen. That is all I have. Thank you very much. Bye bye.